Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Justina and here I like to make, create, and inspire fun art things with you through my DIYs. In today's DIY video, I have 4 brand new spring DIYs that are Alice in Wonderland themed. I know for the past couple years you all loved these DIYs, so I wanted to make some brand new ones for this year. However, before we get started, if you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, but don't forget to click on the bell notification so that YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. I am trying to reach 20,000 subscribers by this year. I really think that we can do it because we're almost there, and I'm super excited for you to join us. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I really do appreciate each and every one of you being here, but don't forget to do all of the YouTubey things, which is like, comment, share, and now you can hype up the video. That really does help out my channel, so if you could do all of those things, that would be deeply appreciated. Now, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it and let's art today. I went to Barnes & Noble's the other week and I found a bunch of calendars that were in their clearance section for only $2. I found this Alice in Wonderland themed one and it is perfect for today's DIYs. It was originally $15.99, which is really high for a calendar, but I only got it for $2. Once again, these calendars are really big. I had bought 2 of them and I used the other one for previous DIYs. I really like this calendar. The artwork is a little bit different, but I absolutely love it, and it has really big images and smaller images that you can use for a bunch of different DIYs. I'm just showing you a couple here that I think were really pretty. This is Alice, and this is the Queen of Hearts and the King of Hearts, and they're at the royal dinner, and I just thought this one right here was absolutely gorgeous, of the white rabbit. So after I looked through it, I picked out my image to start off these DIYs, and for this one I wanted to use the front page, which has this little image of Alice looking up at the Cheshire Cat. I just ripped the sheet right out of the calendar, and I'm going to cut it even further down to size. Now at first I started cutting all around the image and the words, but eventually you're going to see that I cut the words out individually. I just wasn't too sure on how I was going to go about doing this DIY. Now remember, you do not have to do this to your calendar. If you just want to use the calendar as a calendar, you can do that, but for me, I wanted to use the images and to use it for DIYs that I'm going to place around my house. Next, I have this brick that I painted white, and I started painting on bricks around my house so that I can place it into my garden, which may or may not be a video in the future. Now, like I mentioned, I did cut down the image a little bit closer to the outer edges of it because I wasn't too technically sure how I was going about this DIY, but I just wanted to make this brick into a book, or make it look like a book. So this image is going to be the front cover. I place it in the center of the brick, a little bit higher than directly into the center, took a pencil and started tracing out. That way, once I start painting, I knew exactly where the picture will lie, and then we can glue it on later. I did also trace in a little border of our little picture here because I kind of wanted it to look like it was sunk into the book cover, which I'm not sure if I technically did or did not achieve that look, but you let me know down in the comment section below. Next, I'm going in with my apple barrel acrylic paint in the color Nutmeg Brown, and I like this color for a book, and I will paint the front cover, the side cover, and the back cover using multiple coats just to make sure that it was nice and opaque. Now, I like using apple barrel paints for crafts and also using it for artworks They are really affordable acrylic paints. The only thing I can say with these paints is that you do need a couple of coats to achieve a really nice bright color, whichever color that you choose. This is not sponsored by any way, but if you're looking for a nice, easy craft paint to use, I always recommend Apple Barrel. After I let my paint completely dry, it was now time to attach my photo that we cut out earlier. I am going to use this super glue adhesive that I purchased, I believe, at Dollar Tree. It works really well. It's almost like an E6000. The only thing I can really say about it is that it does have a strong smell, so make sure you're in a well ventilated area while doing this. I'm going to add a very thin coat all over the brick, making sure to get all of the spots needed so that the image can really adhere down to the brick. Now, after I placed it down, I push down as hard as I can onto the image to really make sure I thin out that glue that was under the picture so that everything was nice and stuck down. Also, with the extra glue that was spilling over to the sides, I did wipe away with a paper towel, and that also helped the edges stay down firmly. To make the pages of the book, I am using my Waverly chalk paint in the color Steel, using a brush that has a little bit of a rough edge to make those page lines. Now I'm going in and technically using a dry brush method. It doesn't have to be perfect. I do make a couple mistakes, but all I do is go back to the original color, blend it in, and then I also take a paint pen and really crisp up the lines. You just want the illusion of pages on the side. I highly doubt somebody is going to really examine it, and if they do, art is very subjective, so you paint it however you like. I next took some blue acrylic paint and started outlining the edge of our image here. I do tend to change this throughout the DIY. I don't show you every little bit of detail that I do. I just give you the gist of it. You can take your creative freedom and change this up however you like. I just thought this was a really cute idea for your outdoor decor. I do go in with a couple different paint pens in different brands. Normally I do use Posca, but I got these during Christmas time and they worked perfectly on there, and it really helps me clean up those lines and get into really fine details with it. Next, I'm going in with a white paint pen and I'm making a checkered road coming out of the image onto the front cover of the book. This was really fun, but it was hard trying to make all of those little boxes look even. And as you see here, I'm using a popsicle stick to really eye out the checkered pattern, and I'm using it trying to get as straight lines as possible. I am using a black paint pen to draw in those lines, and I use it to X out all the ones that are going to be painted in a black acrylic paint. Now I do have trouble sometimes making the patterns even. That's why I have to exit out. For some reason I get honed in onto the craft, and sometimes I X out the wrong box. But as you see here, I am adding some black acrylic paint in all of the X's. This does take quite some time, but it is well worth it, and with a little help of editing magic, it is all filled up. Then I just needed to paint in the sides with that brown acrylic paint, once again giving it a couple coats to really make sure it was nice and opaque. After the paint had time to completely dry, I took that label that we cut out prior and I started cutting it a little bit closer to the outer edges of the letters also. Then I cut off the other words individually so that we can place it somewhere else, but I used all of the words onto the book. First, I wanted to glue down Wonderland on the spine of the book, and I am using this super glue that we used earlier, making sure to try to get as close to the edges as possible. Then I'm pushing down as hard as I possibly can so that the glue is nice and flat on the back of it. I will use paper towels to remove any excess and to also help me glue down the edges so that it will stick well to the brick. I then moved to the front of the book and I'm placing the words Alice's Adventures on the front cover. I thought this was a really good placement of those words and really made the book pop. Now remember, you don't have to glue down words. You can always paint yours in. I really don't like to paint in words. They're really hard for me. I need to practice more. However, I had these words, so I am going to use it. Once that was dry, which the glue does tend to dry really quickly, I wanted to add a little bit more detail to my book, so I once again took my paint markers and I started drawing these vines all over the book. I added leaves to the vines and then I also added some red roses. I still gave everything about 2 coats of paint, but once everything was completely dried and sealed, that completes this DIY. I absolutely loved how this DIY turned out. To me, it does look like a book and I cannot wait to put it in my garden. I do use Rust-Oleum sealer to seal off all of my pottery and things that go outside, and I did give it about 2 to 3 coats to really make sure everything was locked into place. But I would love to know what you think about this DIY down in the comments section below. For our next DIY, I am using another piece of artwork from this calendar that I purchased from Barnes and Nobles. I am using the white rabbit. I absolutely love it. Now this DIY will be a shelf sitter, so this will go pretty quickly. You want to remove your image from the calendar and you're going to need some sort of frame. I just have this one in my crafting stash that I've used a couple of times. I'm going to frame out our image, use a pen to make sure that I have the correct size and measure it out correctly, and then once again use my paper cutter to cut our image down to size. Now if you do not have a paper trimmer, you can always use a pair of scissors. Sometimes I like to use my scissors for more detailed things, and for my paper cutter I like to use it for straight lines as it's intended to do. So I'm just making sure to cut all 4 sides. Now that it's cut out, all I needed to do was attach it to the frame, and I'm using hot glue, but you can always use some tape so that you can reuse the image, and that completes this DIY. I really loved how this DIY turned out. I really loved it even more because it's super simple to make. You just remove an image, put it in a frame, and then you could put it anywhere in your house and it will look awesome. However, I wanted to put this image on something that I can actually put outside, and that brings us to our next DIY. I have this scrap piece of wood and it has been used a couple times in my DIYs, but I wanted to make it an outdoor decor piece. So I took that same image that we used earlier of a white rabbit, and now I'm using a pair of scissors to cut it as close to the image as possible, trying to leave a little bit of the background just to give it a border because the background is going to have a pattern. After I have my image cut out, I place that to the side so that we can start working on that wooden piece. I'm first going in with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory, and I am dipping my brush into a cup of water. I really wanted this to be very light and see some of that wood grain showing through, so I made sure to wash it down really well. After it was dry, I am taking my ruler and trying to find the center of my board. That way I can make a checker pattern. I know I do this quite often, but Alice in Wonderland always makes me think of a checker pattern. After I found the center, I'm taking my ruler and a paint pen and making all of our lines. I made each row about an inch wide, and I just make sure to line up the dots that I've created to make our vertical lines and to make sure that our lines are as straight as possible. After I have those lines created, I then flipped it over and started making our other lines so that we have a perfect checker pattern. This doesn't take long, especially after you got all of your measurements correctly. Once that was done, once again, I like to make little X's on the boxes that I am going to paint in with black acrylic paint. Now I do this because once again I do have a hard time visualizing which box is going to be in it. Sometimes you just get confused, so that's why I do this little trick here. And that way, once we start painting, I know exactly which box needs to be black and which box I need to leave alone. Once again, I am using basic acrylic paints for this just to add into the boxes. You only need about 1 coat of black paint to really get good coverage, but if you need to, you can always add a second coat. Now this does take a little while, so while I am painting, once again friends, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free, and if you hit the bell notification, YouTube will notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. Now that our checkerboard is completely done, it looks like this, and is absolutely gorgeous. And now it's time to add our image right back onto the board here. I will mess around with it to make sure I got the placement exactly where I want it. And once again, I am using this super glue that I purchased from Dollar Tree, and it works like E6000. It is a gel super glue. That's why I push really firmly when I push it down onto whatever surface I'm pushing down. That way the glue can spread out and there is no bumps on the back of it. After my image was glued down, I felt like it was still missing something, so I wanted to add a border to it just to frame it out even more. And I have these very large bamboo sticks that I purchased from Dollar Tree. I am lining it up against the board, making a little mark with a pen, and then I'm going to take my miter shears and cut it down to size. I did this for all 4 sides, making sure to line it up, mark it off, and then cut it where it needed to be cut so that everything was nice and even. Now that I have all 4 sides, I needed to attach it to the board. Once again, I am using that super glue. This is not sponsored by any means. It just works really good. And I am using little beads of hot glue just to hold it into place. That way it doesn't roll. And then to hold it down even further so it dries completely, I am using some of these little clips that I purchased from Dollar Tree. Once that was dry, that completes this DIY. I absolutely loved how my white rabbit turned out, and I'm super excited to add it to my garden. Now, to make this an outdoor project, I am going to cover it with a couple of coats of my Rust-Oleum clear sealer. That way our image doesn't get damaged by the outdoor elements, but so it can last a long time. I had the urge to paint a terracotta pot, and it's been so long that I've done one, so I'm super excited to do this DIY. This one is about a 6-inch clay one, and I purchased it from Walmart. I believe it was around $2. And then I have this cap one. I purchased it from the 99-cent store back when they were open. I first am adding a base coat using my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in this gorgeous greenish teal color. I do add about 2 coats. Now, normally what I like to do is seal my pots and then paint on top of the sealer. However, for this DIY, I just went right into it because I wanted to start painting as quick as possible. Now, it tends to soak up the water from the paint, so it does tend to want to dry fairly quickly. That's why I'm adding a lot of thick layers onto it and trying to spread it out as evenly as possible. But I tend to do 2 coats of paint anyways, and you would have to do about 2 coats if you seal it as well. Once I have the outside painted, I then do paint the inside with 2 different colors. Now, for the pot portion, I'm mixing in 2 different types of red and pink together to make a nice salmon color, because I'm turning my terracotta pot into the Mad Hatter's hat. Now, it's a mixture of both the Disney cartoon version and the live version, because in the cartoon his band is a darker green, but in the live version, the band is this nice pink color, and I'm adding it to the bottom portion of our pot because once you place it onto the plate, it kind of looks like a hat and it's super adorable. I found a couple different examples on Pinterest. There are literally hundreds of different types of ways people have done this. Then I wanted to add more of that pink color on the inside of my pot. I use my pots for decoration purposes, so I actually add a plastic pot inside of this pot that actually holds the dirt and the plant of it, and that's way my pot that I've painted is the decor piece on the outside. Then, as you see here, I'm taking white acrylic paint and I'm making a little rectangle, kind of slanted, because on the cartoon version of the Mad Hatter, he has this little tag here. I'm adding more details using a really thin paintbrush and black acrylic paint, and I'm outlining the little band that we created. I also added more lines to that band just to make it look like it's creased. Then I'm going to add the outline to our little tag here. Also, do have to give everything about 2 coats of paint just to really make sure that everything was nice and opaque and to clean up any mistakes that I've made. Lastly, I'm taking my black acrylic paint marker and I'm adding the Mad Hatter's hat measurements. I believe so. That is in the cartoon Disney version. And once I was done, that completes this DIY. I absolutely loved how our Mad Hatter planter turned out. It is super adorable. This was super fun. I really miss painting on terracotta pots. I am looking forward to continuing to make more throughout the year, but I just love how this turned out. And once again, I would love to know what you think about this DIY down in the comment section below. All right, friends, that completes this round of DIYs for you in the Allison in Wonderland themed. I absolutely love making these DIYs, especially for the springtime. These are super fun, easy to do, and I really hope it inspired you to make some Alice in Wonderland themed DIYs. I would love to know which one of today's 4 DIYs was your favorite down in the comment section below. And while you're down there, don't forget to leave me a white rabbit emoji so I know that you stuck it all the way through and the real VIPs of my channel. I do want to give a huge shout out to my Patreons. Thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you for all of the recent free members that joined. I am super thrilled that you are over there, and I can't wait for you to enjoy all of the freebies that are in there. And if you are ready to sign up to become a member to get goodies each month, all of those links will be down in the description box below. Remember, friends, if you are new here and you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you do that today. All you have to do is click on that big red subscribe button down below. It is totally free. And if you can please hit the notification button so that YouTube can always notify you every time I upload a new video. Plus, we would love to have you here, part of our virtual art family. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. But don't forget to do all the YouTubey things, which is like, comment, and share. It really does help out my channel. And now you can hype up the video. That even helps further push out my video to other viewers. And I just really hope that you enjoyed today's DIYs. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.